Picking up where I left off on the last war diary. We had just loaded up our injured commander into the Humvee, and he told us to meet with him at the hospital. So we left from there, fell back a few more buildings, like half a kilometer, running building to building with all of our allies, the Arab Qasida soldiers. And as we moved, mortars and sniper fire and rockets were still coming in, so we would take shelter inside of a building to catch our breath after a good sprint. And then it became really chaotic. A whole crew of people started to come down the road, and one guy was killed next to us running down the road, and so everybody scattered off of the road, and we were running between the buildings again. And then trucks started to come down the road, trucks full of comrades. They were just picking up everybody and going, and a truck stopped for us, and a bunch of friends jumped in, but there wasn't enough room for us, and we were trying to stick with our Qasida team, the sniper team with the big machine gunner that's in the Vice News video. But like I said, there wasn't enough room in the trucks, and at one point we went so far down the road, we found our truck, and we were going to get in it, but we noticed that a tire was flat, so we couldn't get in our truck. And the team before us had lost a truck. The same truck had been stolen, so we were kind of pissed off because we figured somebody had slashed the tire so we couldn't take it, and they were going to come back and try to steal it later, which they did. And they were prevented from that by our Arab Qasida sniper team. They caught these guys trying to steal our truck, and they did end up stealing like some weapons and medic shit, and our allies took it back from them, arrested the guys, and put it back. But right at this moment, we got to the truck, saw that it was no good right then, so we kept running down the road, and ISIS was pushing forward building to building behind us, and we just kept running down this road for a few kilometers for a long time, and we were all about to collapse, and bullets were still going overhead. And then a bunch of reinforcements came down the road, and trucks full of like fresh troops started coming up the road, and trucks were still evacuating the other guys down the road, and there was a bunch of dead and wounded friends in the back of these trucks, and you could hear ISIS like shouting down the road right behind us, coming up in trucks, and we were running, hiding, trying to stay away from the enemy. And finally, when we got past where the reinforcements were coming, we ran into a building full of friends, and they welcomed us in there, and they gave us some food to eat and some tea and water, and we all sat down and collapsed and were just exhausted, and I started to shake, and I was getting cold in the shade, so I went out on the sunlight on the berm that was around the building protecting us, and would warm myself up in the sunlight, and a little drone came overhead, like the one that had bombed us. So I got up, and I ran inside, and they were laughing, and I was like, no, look at this video. And I showed them the video that's posted on this channel of the drone bombing us, and they were like, oh. So they came inside after I showed them the video, and we were all paranoid and nervous, and you know, really like shell-shocked. And a team of friends came up to the building, but they were coming from the rear, and they were all fresh, and their uniforms were clean, and they had like brand new weapons. Like one guy had a SCAR, and another guy had an M4, and we were just looking at them all suspicious, like, why the fuck are you so clean? You know, is this ISIS? Like, the one dude had his rack on under his jacket, so it looked like he had a bomb, and we were all like, safeties off, like ready to shoot these guys, until the commander of the group that we had met up with at this building walked up and hugged and kissed the guy, and we were like, okay, if you know this guy, I guess we won't shoot him. And right then on the radio, one of our friends who had been stuck back there, one of the Arab Qasida guys, started screaming over the radio, and I'll never forget that sound because he was dying. And he had been stuck in this building, and he was like barricaded in a room, like defending himself and like running out of ammo, and he was just screaming for help, like Haval, Haval, and his voice, like I can't even imitate how he sounded because it was just so brutal, and it sucked hearing him. We all listened to this guy die on the radio, and it fucks me up right now thinking about it. But nobody could help him because he was so far back behind the new front. He was so far behind enemy territory where the enemy had just pushed up. And eventually ISIS busted in there and shot him or killed him. I don't know exactly how he died, but so after we all sat there like really quiet, just staring at the ground, and like the mood was we wanted to go fight, and but we had the orders from our commander to go find him. So we were trying to find our commander at this hospital, and we couldn't find him. Nobody could take us to him. They ended up taking us to American Special Forces, and we told them what was happening, and they called in the airstrikes, and they stopped ISIS from advancing, but they didn't have airstrikes all morning, and they actually apologized to us for that, and that meant a lot to us. They apologized, and that they promised to do a better job next time, and they gave me an American flag patch and some MREs and protein shakes, and I was asking them if I could have a Javelin rocket because I had been trained on the Javelin in the U.S. Army, and they were like, fuck no, fuck off. And I was like, well, can I get an AT-4 rocket? And they were like, no. I was like, all right. So we sat around with them and talked about it and told stories, and they were really impressed by how we did in combat, and they apologized again, and we told them thank you for the airstrikes at night, because that kept us safe and we could actually get some sleep thanks to their airstrikes. So after that, we got sent back to the commanders. We got more ammunition, and I wanted to go like right back to the front, but we had to fuck with the truck and get the truck repaired. And after we like lost a day getting this truck repaired because the truck was all messed up. The guy who tried to steal it had messed up the starter where the key goes. He had tried to like steal it with a screwdriver in the keyhole, and so we had to get the tire fixed and the starter fixed, and then we went back to the front, and it was pretty much quiet the whole rest of the time we were on the front line. We didn't have any more battles. Our team of internationals attached to these guys, you know, and like the place we went, there was an armory that we had taken from ISIS. It was full of like bomb-making materials, makeshift mortars and mortar tubes, bunch of ammo, bunch of AKs. So we took as much as we could carry to the new building with us. And the new building was an ISIS field hospital. And they had life support machines. They had an operating table, bunch of prosthetic limbs. There was a room the size of a warehouse, packed to ceiling and floor and front to back. Took 4 trucks to unload all the medical supplies in that room. I found a suicide vest, unexploded suicide vest, like 6 unexploded rockets, a bunch of like blown up grenades that they had tried to destroy their stuff, and a bunch of like destroyed and burned empty magazines, like AK-47 mags and stuff like that. Outside there was a bunch of grain, like a bunch of raw food materials that they had burned with formaldehyde, and that smelled gross the whole time we were there. And we were all paranoid and shell-shocked after that, so we were up all night like watching, pulling security. And the Arab Qasida guys were all laid back. There was a bunch of fucking kids and old men, you know, in that squad that we were attached to. On our way out there, friends had actually shot at us, and we had friendly fire, and we all took cover, and they were like, oh, my bad. You know, we're like, fuck you. You don't fucking shoot at me right now, man. I just went through all this stuff. You know, it was a bunch of kids and old men, so they're making mistakes. But yeah, that was about it. After that, we went home, and that was about it for my experience on the front line on this operation. Overall, for like every one of us that they killed, I believe we killed 2 or 3 of them. You know, when I asked the commander how many we killed, he said we killed 21. And so I was happy about that. I was proud of that. You You know, it was a good fight. There's a lot of sacrifice, but that's what it's about. You know, if anybody wants to join, I think if you're American, you should join the U.S. Army. If you're not eligible for the U.S. Army, talk to me about joining YPG. And if you're a woman, join the YPJ. You know, you'll find respect. You'll earn it with gun in hand. And, you know, that's what it's about. Fighting a good fight, making sacrifice, fighting for what you believe in. You know, most of the world's not ready for that. A lot of people are on this hippie trip, and I'm into it too. You know, I'm a yoga teacher. But when it comes to people like ISIS, they want to die fighting, you know, and we should oblige them. There's no middle ground when it comes to that kind of extremist ideology. So in the same vein of that thought, we have to be open to compromise. We have to give them the option to submit. We have to give them the option to surrender. We have to take the moral high ground. You know, we're not them, and we have to reflect that in the way that we fight. We have to take prisoners. You know, if they want to die, you got to shoot them. If they want to fight, if they want to shoot at you, shoot them first. Shoot straighter than they shoot faster. But if they're coming at you with a civilian as a human shield, don't shoot the civilian. Don't call in the airstrike. You got to suffer and take that punishment. You know, they're going to try to break your morale. You have to have more reasons to fight than they do. At the end of the day, a jihadi is a coward because they're operating with a fundamental lie about an imaginary afterlife. Nobody knows what happens after you die, and it takes a lot more bravery to go out there and put everything on the line. Life, limb, and eyesight, potential death, when you're facing the reality with honesty that nobody knows what happens after you die. Nobody can prove any of that. And so they're fighting for a bunch of bullshit. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for my Muslim allies who fight against ISIS. You know, we have guys who stop to pray. They're doing their hygiene out there on the battlefield more often than I was, taking good care of themselves, calling their wives from the front line to tell them how much they love them, you know, calling their friends and family. And they're doing their prayer and they're reading. You know, I'm a yogi. I'm sort of an atheist. You know, I spend a lot of time with the Hare Krishnas. I keep my meditation beads on me because the exercise helps me stay calm, helps me follow breathing exercise, repeating a mantra in my head. I use the Hare Krishna mantra because I've repeated it so many times and I've spent so much time living in their yoga monasteries. But I honestly believe that, you know, whatever you believe in, if you stick to that, it'll give you strength. You know, you look to your ancestors, the people who trained you, the people who raised you, and you draw strength from them. And, you know, look to your comrades, look to the people standing next to you, the men and women who are fighting against terrorists every day out there on the front line. Give them respect, give them support, and earn their respect, and go out and fight these bad guys. You know, I encourage everybody to take a stand for what you believe in. Fight against these neo-Nazis all over the world. Fight against ISIS all over the world. They're the same exact thing. They're two different sides of the same coin. Fucking neo-Nazi fascists with their Christianity bullshit, and, you know, extremist jihadis who are out there. All of them are subjugating women. You know, all of them are subjugating minorities. They believe in enslaving other human beings. Fuck that shit. Fuck them. You know, fight for human rights. Fight for freedom. Fight for something worth believing in. You know, fight for humanity's highest ideal. Thanks for watching this, guys.